Tonight, details leaked about Alinta's request to the state government that could have kept the power station open. And politics and power, local reaction to the report into the state's big blackout.
This is Southern Cross News with Tim Hatfield.
Good evening. It's been revealed Alinta needed just $25 million from the state government to keep its Port Augusta power station running until next year. Confidential correspondence between the company and the Wetherill government has finally been released detailing the rejected bailout plea.
In 2015, Alinta said with a $25 million subsidy, it could keep generating electricity in Port Augusta for another 3 years. But the Labor government rejected the proposal and 1 year later, the power station closed.
Coal and Northern represented the past, and it just did not make sense to be investing in something which no private company could make viable.
But turning the lights off has led to skyrocketing power prices and unreliability. This month, the state government announced a $360 million gas-fired power plant and just today, a $40 million injection to Pelican Point. The opposition calls it a knee-jerk reaction.
If the government had accepted Alinta's offer to keep the power station operating for another 3 years, as was offered back in 2015, then all of South Australia would have had the opportunity for a really smart, well-planned, well-managed transition.
Port Augusta's mayor is outraged. He says the Labor Party has previously denied the existence of an offer.
And then they lied to the people of South Australia saying, we never had an offer. Well, there it is, addressed right to the Premier, straight to the Energy Minister, and they chose not to accept it.
He says accepting the offer would have given Alinta workers more time to find new jobs.
This is disgusting. This is disgusting to the energy market, to South Australians, and more importantly, to the people of Port Augusta and the Upper Spencer Gulf, because 450 people plus have lost their jobs. Their livelihood has been ripped apart and turned upside down.
It wouldn't save any jobs. What it would do is simply offer false hope to people.
The offer came with a bank guarantee, meaning if it was unsuccessful, the state government wouldn't have had to pay it all. Lauren Rose, Southern Cross News.
And politicians from both major parties say last September's blackout must never be allowed to happen again. Eddie Hughes and Peter Treloar say the energy market operator's report into the incident is a wake-up call for the state.
AEMO's report into last September's blackout finally laid bare the events of September 28 last year. While wind power was spared major blame, the market operator revealed it was unaware of a software setting that shuts turbines down in emergencies. It's a revelation that surprised Peter Treloar and Eddie Hughes.
Given their responsibilities and charter, they should have made themselves aware of the settings and the possible likely outcomes should events occur.
It's the sort of important detail that you would have thought they were across.
And while their parties have differing views on the state's energy future, both agree this cannot happen again. Businesses across the region suffered greatly, and Mr. Treloar says blackouts can cripple traders.
The costs that go onto household and businesses, particularly at that time of the year, are quite extraordinary.
Mr. Hughes says the state should continue developing renewable energy projects and the state government's energy plan, despite rising scepticism.
They're going to be clean energy assets, and they're going to be energy assets with backup.
And Mr. Treloar is also demanding a permanent fix to Port Lincoln's troubled generators, which kept the city in the dark for 3 days.
2 tripped and 1 was taken offline, so we're still yet to receive answers as to why that occurred.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
And following yesterday's report into the systematic failure of 3 generator units which plunged Port Lincoln into darkness during the blackouts, finally the city has some answers. It showed how 2 units failed just 1 day after both were successfully tested.
Finally, some light has been shed on the blackout crisis.
The Australian energy market operator has released publicly a blow-by-blow description or a failure-by-failure description as to what happened to our power supply way back in September. So it's really good now that we have that information in the public arena.
Yesterday's report documents a timeline in which the first two generators failed due to the extreme weather conditions. Units 1 and 2 both tripped unexpectedly from the heavy rain. The third generator was then taken offline to avoid damage after receiving frequency problems. The power was then restored 2 days later after Port Lincoln was reconnected through the main line. However, the generators remained inoperative until the following week.
We learned that just recently, that the generators are back online, so that certainly gives us some comfort that in the event of a power failure or the event of a transmission line going down, that the generators locally will be able to kick in and at least supply power to the lower end of Eyre Peninsula.
The final report mentions that a number of attempts to bring the third generator back online continue to fail. Subsequently, Energy has carried out a number of actions since the September blackouts to avoid any future issues and once again return Port Lincoln to power stability.
It's certainly satisfying to get a full detailed description as to what happened and have the assurances that the standby generators in Port Lincoln are operating.
Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
The closure of Port Augusta's iconic Great Western Bridge has sparked a call for a safety audit of the rest of the state's publicly owned and operated bridges. The Civil Contractors Federation says as bridges across the state age, they're not being properly maintained. It says there's a very real fear that somebody could be injured or killed on a dangerous piece of infrastructure if a review is put off. Meanwhile, Port Augusta Council has called a meeting tonight to discuss the options available to them for both the Great Western and the Joy-Baluke Bridge. We'll have the full details of that in tomorrow's bulletin. Well, stay with us. Still to come in tonight's local news, could a change in federal election boundaries enlarge our biggest seat? The details ahead. Welcome back. The Federal Electoral Division of Grey could soon expand, with South Australia set to lose another House of Representatives seat. The local MP says while nothing has been decided yet, our stagnant population may force a boundary redraw.
South Australia's population is stagnating compared to other states, and this could see us lose a federal seat. The Electoral Commission is set to determine soon how many seats will be available at the next election, and our 11 seats don't meet the electoral quota required. Our local member says it's a reflection of the health of SA.
Our percentage proportion share of population of Australia is falling, and our allocation under the Constitution of seats to South Australia look like falling even lower.
Respected election analyst Anthony Green says one solution would be for Grey to absorb parts of the neighbouring district of Wakefield. The proposal could see areas of the Clare Valley and Plains join the seat, further increasing the area covered. But the potential of a larger electorate doesn't faze Mr Ramsey, who suffered a major drop in support at last year's poll.
Oh, well, it is what it is, and the member just has to apply themselves even harder.
Wakefield is an electorate held by Labour's Nick Champion, but Associate Professor Hayden Manning from Flinders Uni says the potential territory change could actually benefit the Liberals. He says with Clare and the Plains traditional Liberal voting areas, it could help shore up the seat from opposing parties.
But it doesn't change the equation. I mean, Grey sits as a safe seat. But always interesting to see how the Electoral Commission weigh up.
The next election is due in 2019. John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Port Pirie police have stumbled across thousands of dollars worth of illegal drugs in 2 separate traffic stops over the past fortnight. The drugs believed to be methamphetamine. Here's Keziah with this week's Police Talk.
A substantial amount of drugs is off the streets. In 2 separate incidents, police intercepted the drugs, the first amount being trafficked by a pair in their 20s travelling along the Augusta Highway.
Now, as a result of that motor vehicle search, police were successful in locating a quantity of substance. We believe that will be methamphetamine.
The second arrest was similar, but this time it was a man operating alone.
Again, a random traffic stop, this time as a result of a random breath testing station on the Augusta Highway at Meriton, just south of Crystal Brook.
Both arrests saw a substantial amount of what is believed to be methamphetamine seized. The drugs were trafficked in pill, crystal and paste form.
More so for the community, it's a substantial win, and to know that we've taken such a large amount of drugs off the street is just a fantastic result.
Police are warning people of the dangers of trafficking drugs and, more importantly, the effects of taking such harmful substances.
I guess the message is out there to people that it doesn't matter where you are or what you think you're up to, crime doesn't pay, in particular illegal drug running, possession or even the taking of drugs certainly doesn't pay.
And Superintendent Denny assured the public the police are monitoring the concerning use of drugs in the community.
There's no indication within the Port Pirie area to say that it is necessarily on the rise in mass increase, but as I said, it is becoming more common in terms of the drug of choice for people.
Keziah Sullivan, Southern Cross News.
A Broken Hill GP is urging locals to visit their doctor for a flu vaccination heading into the cooler months. Elderly people and those with a chronic disease are said to be at the highest risk as always and should get a jab as soon as possible.
Getting a flu shot is a simple thing, but more and more Australians are not getting one.
In the modern times, not as many people take up vaccination, especially if it's free for some reason. But if it's for free, then there must be some benefit, otherwise why they're handing these out.
Influenza is preventable, and if vaccinations are available, Dr Netjapan says you should get one.
Annually in Australia, about 3,500 people die from the influenza. So if it's preventable, why aren't we taking it up in greater numbers? That's my concern.
At this time of the year, local GPs are trying to get as many high-risk people vaccinated against the flu. People over the age of 65 and people with a chronic disease like diabetes, heart disease or asthma are also urged to get a shot or face life-threatening consequences.
Research shows that anyone with a chronic disease is 40 times at risk of dying from the influenza.
Dr Netjapan's practice will begin their rollout of vaccinations over the next 2 months, with clinics every morning starting next week.
We're going to actually send out letters to every single patient who actually qualifies for a free flu vaccine. Other practices may have their own ways of contacting their patients. At the end of the day, if any of our patients contact the practices, they'll know when they can come in and have it as soon as possible.
Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
Well, stay with us. When we return after the break, the lineup announced for this year's Salt Festival in Port Lincoln. The details ahead. Welcome back. Well, as we come to the end of March, the region's petrol prices are still on their way down. Here's Patrick with this week's Fuel Watch.
It's a sea of green in both the unleaded and diesel figures this week. It's a perfect way to end the month. Starting with unleaded, and Port Pirie remains the cheapest in the Spencer Gulf, and have even gone down by a little bit as well. The price, $1.25. Port Augusta is the only one to see a spike and has gone up by 2 cents. Whyalla remains on $1.29, while Port Lincoln has ticked down to sit on $1.28. Here in Broken Hill, we're going from strength to strength. Another 1 cent drop puts us on $1.27. Adelaide has recovered nicely after last week's blowout. A 10-cent change has them on $1.25. To diesel now, and Port Pirie has broken even. Port Augusta has gone down and Whyalla has gone up. Port Lincoln continues to prosper on $1.25, while here in the Silver City, a small change keeps us in the green. Adelaide rounds out the board on $1.22. Now remember, these prices are the regional averages and they do not reflect any one particular outlet. If you do happen to find a spot that is selling unleaded or diesel for cheaper, be sure to let us know on our Facebook page. Tim.
Thanks, Pat. Port Lincoln's inaugural Salt Festival is set to be a groundbreaking event for the Eyre Peninsula. The Art and Culture Festival will launch on the Eyre Peninsula next month and already has attracted attention from acclaimed international artists.
It's Port Lincoln's first art festival and tickets are now on sale.
We've been working for over 12 months. We've had a range of acts that are programmed in. Our programs are being printed and everything's live on the website with tickets for sale. We've got over 80 events, lots of free events, and it's the second week of the school holidays.
SALT will be a showcase of art and culture colliding during a week-long festival next month. Artists, musicians and comedians will feature, including an exhibition by international actor Jeff Bridges.
It's brand new, it's bigger than we expected, and everyone's really got on board. So there's local, national and international artists that'll be part of Salt Festival 2017.
The event will also include an organised walk in Tumby Bay to coincide with Parkinson's Awareness Month, allowing locals to take part in a community first.
Our theme is anything is possible, and we're looking to prove that by showcasing innovation, art and creativity on Southern Eyre Peninsula.
Salt will come on the heels of this year's successful Adelaide Fringe, with artists transporting their performances to here on the Eyre Peninsula, the first step of a potential collaboration.
We've got a meeting with the Fringe today to talk about how we work together next year for 2018.
For more information about tickets, visit our Facebook page. Jason Kemp, Southern Cross News.
Applications are now open for round 1 of Broken Hill Council's community assistance grants. The council is encouraging community groups to submit an application before the deadline at the end of next month.
If you've got an event or something you think could use a little push forward, Council says you should submit an application for the grants program.
Now, people will remember that we introduced this grant system to make sure we had transparency in the process and to make sure that other community groups who not normally access funding had an opportunity to access that community funding.
Funding is available under 3 different streams: general community assistance, veranda restoration and painting and minor restoration works.
We're hoping we'll get some good projects. Last year we had a whole range of projects. I think the quilters, the carpet at the South Golf Club, really interesting stuff that normally people wouldn't access as funds. This is what it's here for.
Mayor Turley says the community can benefit greatly from the funding. Council will be holding a workshop on the 5th of April for people that are interested in the grants, but not sure about the whole process.
We're saying come in and have a talk to our staff and they can give you some advice and help.
For more information about the grants program, visit the Southern Cross News Facebook page. Applications close on April 28th. Patrick Roinke, Southern Cross News.
The debut single of the winner of the Whyalla Recording Scholarship, Breeze Millard, is ready to go and will be launched on Sunday. She spent the last couple of months working with Alison Hams and Mark Tempani on the song titled I Have My Own Life. Her work was then mastered in New York by Tom Coyne, a Grammy Award-winning music arranger. It'll be released on Sunday, following a concert in the Whyalla, followed by a concert at the Whyalla Library on Sunday the 16th of April. Breeze says she's very pleased with the finished product.
And sometimes your love fails to help. I have my own life, my own problems, it hurt to tell.
It's absolutely how I envisioned it, it's absolutely how I saw it. Especially seeing it grow from the acoustic version of the song to hear all the different implements in there that we've put in.
Well, stay with us after the break. A look at how the local weather is panning out. Welcome back. Turning to the weather now, and a bit of a mixed bag about the place today. Port Augusta mainly fine on 27, Whyalla though seeing some showers on 26, the same in Port Pirie, Port Lincoln 22 and a sunny 32 in Broken Hill. On the national satellite image, cloud bands moving across the region set to generate unsettled conditions and some showers. Out on the Gulf waters, the winds to 25 knots and southerly, seas to 1.5 metres into the southwest. Sunrises just before 7:30. So looking at tomorrow, still some lingering showers about, 20 in Whyalla and in Port Lincoln, Port Pirie on 21. Port Augusta fine though, also 21, the same over in Broken Hill. Port Lincoln then cloudy on Friday before the showers return, heading for 20. Cleve with 18 and more showers to wrap up the week. Woodner fine on 22 for Friday. Whyalla fine and 20 to see off this week. 21 and 22 for Friday and Saturday in Port Augusta. A cloudy 22 in Kadina. Port Pirie expecting 23 on Friday and 24 on Saturday, 19 for Clare, Broken Hill fine and 21 on Friday and 22 expected on Saturday. And that is the local news for this Wednesday evening. Don't forget you can stay up to date with us on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll see you back here tomorrow night from 6:30. I'm Tim Hatfield from the Southern Cross News team. Enjoy your evening. Good night.